What's up, tribe? How you guys doing? This is going to be the season finale of David Makes Man, season 1, episode 10. So, I'm kind of walking away with more questions than I started with. I had to sit with it for a minute and kind of watch it again and kind of... So, we start this episode off with David narrating basically if you had to do it all over again, what would your last day be like? And we see us going through what really happened with Sky, like how things really went down. We see Sky in his private apartment. Now, again, we dropping into the drug world. We know, when I say we, drug dealers usually have where they live totally separate from where they deal. And very few, if any, people know where that location is. It's very private, usually, from what I've heard. So Sky's doing his thing. He's cooking. He's putting together some salmon croquettes. My mama makes salmon croquettes. They are so good. And he hears some knocking at the door. And he's automatically thinking, oh my gosh, who's at my door? He pulls his gun out. And then when he sees a shinobi, he puts the gun away. That's important for later. So he ends up putting the gun away. He hides it underneath his pillow or what have you in his couch. He sees this shinobi, and what we find out is that Shinobi's sister has just been killed in a drive-by, and the family is mourning, and Shinobi is like, look, I was there, but my family, they didn't even, notice me. They're really going through it or whatever. And Sky is talking to Shinobi the same way he's talking to David. He's like, look, get out of the Ville. Like, this isn't what I want for you. This isn't what I'm trying to prepare you for. Like, what are you doing here? And Shinobi is basically like, I don't know any other way. Like, I don't have any other options, and I don't know any other way. And, we realize that this is the same day that Ryan, I'm going to try to not call him Dreadlock Kool-Aid Boy, because by the end of the episode, the Kool-Aid dreadlocks are gone. But we see that it's the same day that everything happened with Sky. But he's basically just trying to talk to Shinobi about just doing something different. And, he was like, look, this ain't even supposed to be your life. And I kind of got the impression, and maybe I'm reading too much into it. Y'all let me know. I'm sure you will. I kind of even got the impression that maybe Shinobi was into something else, like sports or something that Sky thought would be his ticket out. I kind of felt that. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. But he gets a phone call, and it's Ryan's mother calling him to let him know that Ryan's been in a really bad car accident. Sky rushes over there. He pulls up. He sees the car. He goes in the house. He's all upset. He's thinking, I'm sure he's thinking, oh my God, my son is half dead. Especially once he saw the car. Even though the car didn't look that bad, but I'm sure he was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? He goes in the house, and Ryan is sitting there playing, Ray, whatever the boy name is, he's sitting there playing video games. Like, yeah, man, had a little accident, but I'll get it fixed. And Sky's like, what? Like, what happened? You know what I mean? But he's really sitting there like, are you kidding right now? Like, what is going on with you? And he's acting so nonchalant. He playing his video game. He's acting like it's not a big deal. Like, yeah, I crashed up the car. It's all good. It's all, it's gravy. And Sky loses it. He was like, you selfish. And he loses it. And he starts beating his tail. The mother comes in and breaks it up. And the mother's like, don't you put your hands on my child. And she pulls him off of him. And, Sky's looking at him like, what? He's like, I'm beating your tail like it needs to be beat. Because, you're a spoiled, selfish little something. So Ray is like, I'm going to get my uncle. I'm calling my uncle. And Scott told him, call your uncle and tell him where I'm at. So, we know the rest of that story. So, we see David talking to Sky, and they in the spot, right? So, he's back in the Ville, and they in the spot. And he's talking to David, and again, they're having one of their conversations where he's basically telling David, look, this ain't where it's at. Like, I'm not grooming you. I'm not getting you ready to be the next big drug dealer in the Ville. Like, you need to be in school. He was like, it's summertime. Ain't nobody in school. He was like, do you know where your classmates are right now? He's like, your classmates are in Monaco. They're in Napa Valley. Like, do you understand what you're competing against? He was like, so you're always in school. School doesn't ever end. And David is, he's taking it all in and he's listening and everything. But he's letting him know, like, look, no, this is not what I want for you. So he hears noise. He hears creaking. He knows somebody's coming. He tells David, you go hide. And he reaches behind him to pull his gun and realizes he left his gun. He never picked up his gun from the sofa couch, because he got the phone call about Ray, ran out the house, never picked up his weapon, ran, and then he left there. He was so pissed off he left there. He probably went straight back to the Ville. Now, the only thing I'm gonna say about that is, you only got but one gun? Like, you don't have a gun in the car? You don't have no firepower in the spot? Like, really? None. You this big drug dealer, but you got one gun? That part was a little unrealistic for me, but alright, I'm gonna let you have that. And I mean, realistically, he didn't have time to go. I guess I'm sure if there were other guns in the apartment, he really ain't had time to go get it. But whatever, neither here nor there. We know what happens after that. He struggles with a Jamaican boy for the gun, shoots, either he shoots at him or he shoots him, and Sky runs out, and that's when we see David run out. And David runs to his apartment. He sees them running, and then that's when we see that he actually saw Sky get shot, and he ran over to the body and all of that. Most of that we already knew. We just didn't know as much of the background. Then we realized that David had fallen asleep on the bus, and he was sort of dreaming this but reacting it. Now, what I realized, and this is important when we get to the end, what I realized is that every time David is, all season long, David's been going into these fantasies, but whenever he comes out of the fantasy, it's always this sound that it's like a shoot type sound. And that's important. The reason why I say that. So that sound happened, and David wakes up, and they're actually on the bus on their way back to the Ville after the storm. They're walking back through the Ville, and people are cleaning up, and his mom is like, the Ville held up pretty good. And David was like, it's beautiful. She said, you're right, because there's some people who don't have a house to go home to. And then David looks up, and if he feels like everybody is staring at him. He feels like everything has stopped and everybody is staring at him and his mom and JG as they're walking through the Ville. Then he sees Tara. He tries to walk over to Tara. Tara hits him with the "not right now, David. Don't do it. Not right now." And she goes in the house and slams the door. So David is like, what's that about? Now I wasn't sure what it was about either. I was thinking, well, shoot, maybe you stuck in a storm with a house, you feel like you on edge or something. Maybe she just was having a bad time. Next thing you know, Shinobi grabs up David. Shinobi is busted, okay? Look like, what's his name, Dorian, Jamaican boy. He is on a tear. He's looking for Ray. And he ran up on Shinobi. Shinobi said he caught me off guard. And he basically pistol whipped Shinobi, looking for Ray. And David was like, you need to get up out of here. He was like, you need to take that last script, you need to fill it, and you need to roll out. And David tells him, like, look, Scott put all of us on. He didn't want none of us doing this. He said, and at the end of the day, this is on us. So we need to figure out a way. He said, so you just need to leave. And, Shinobi told him, you need to be worried about Jamaican boy looking for you. And he was like, we already got a plan for him. He said, the plan is already in play. So next thing you know, apartment manager comes up to Gloria and tells Gloria, look, why didn't you tell me you didn't have nowhere to stay? I could have made some phone calls for you. She said, Elijah told me you really didn't have nowhere to go. But they look like they're going to plan the vigil that they were going to have for Willie before the storm. And she is so nice to JG, because, she was ready to kick them out the apartment when JG, was burning up his sheets, honey. But she was really sweet to JG and really, I guess, understanding the moment. But Gloria was off, honey. Gloria was tearing the house up like a real fiend, looking for a little white pill anywhere under something, knowing good and damn well she ain't leave no stash nowhere, but she tearing that apartment up. And the apartment manager knows. She knows, she know Gloria. She said, well, maybe when your mother's feeling better. So she know Gloria on something. She knows something ain't right with her. So then we see David. So Sarah and her friend roll up on David. And he was like, oh, so you talking to me now? And she was like, look, my mama don't want me talking to you. He was like, what I do? And basically, her and her little friend was like, look, because our mama think that you had something to do with Willie dying. Like, they think that you running with that crew, you selling drugs or whatever. And David was like, what? Me? No. I'm not selling no drugs. What are you talking about? Like, it was crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was really acting real indignant about it. But he did make some valid points. He was like, oh, so did your mama have a problem with it when she was buying weed from Sky? And, she was like, my mama don't buy no. He was like, yeah, nobody mama buy it until they buy it. So he was like, everybody around here guilty. Ain't nobody around here innocent. We all doing the same thing. So if your mama want to be mad at me or tell you not to speak to me, then it is what it is. So then she gonna say, oh, so that's it? He was like, what the? Did you just say your mama don't want you speaking to me? Like, what you want me to do? So he rolls up on Miss Elijah, honey. And he tells Miss Elijah, and Miss Elijah is like, David, you the one that got this script pad. Where did you get it from? Why did you do it? They had that moment. And he was like, Elijah was like, I should go tell your mother. David was like, look, we were broke. We didn't have no money. I did what I felt like I had to do. He said, but it ends now because I don't want this on me anymore. I feel really bad about what happened I keep wanting to call that boy Willie Earl, and I know that ain't right. But anyway, I feel really bad about what happened to Lil Willie. We just gonna call him Lil Willie. And we got a plan in place, but I need you to do we got to pull one last caper. And Mr. Elijah was like, yo, is this gonna get me caught up? Elijah, he said, look, if Ray Uncle realized that we playing him, oh, we all are caught up. Like, it ain't just you. We all gonna get it. So, he convinces Miss Elijah to fill out one more prescription. Now, I'm a little confused as to... No, I'm not. I'm not confused. I'm not confused at all. No, I'm not. That's the prescription that she ends up giving Shinobi. Because Shinobi ends up rolling up on her, and she stops him at the door and is like, look, you can't come up in here. And he was like, what? He was like, and basically he was like, look, I come to you to be for a little relaxation, and you be begging for it half the time, and now I can't come in. He was like, oh, you got company or something? He was like, and Miss Elijah was like, look, you can't come up in here. He was like, well, just let me get my stuff. He was like, what stuff? He said, you know what I need. So that's when Miss Elijah gave him the prescription, and that was the prescription that David had him type up. So Shinobi basically cusses Miss Elijah out, calls him all kinds of you-know-whats and you-know-his. And he said, well, you better be careful. He might have that AIDS or something like that. And Miss Elijah was like, look, I get screened every 6 months. You might want to do it yourself. And he was like, what? I ain't know, I ain't going to say the words, but you know what he was saying. And Miss Elijah was like, do you know what you are? So he gonna turn around and basically cuss out again, and tell her, don't worry about it. I won't be back. You ain't got to worry about me. I won't be back. Since that's how you feel, then it is what it is. I'm out. And Melissa, and he act like he about to put his hands on Miss Elijah. Miss Elijah yanked off that headscarf and had them braids up underneath and was like, look, don't let the makeup and the hair fool you, boo. I'm still a man, and I will rock your ass. So Shinobi thought twice about it because he didn't already have one ass whipping for the day. And I guess he figured, you know what, let me just get my prescription and let me get the hell up out of here. Now down to the Ville, they have the visual for Willie Earl. And Gloria, David, and JG walk up in there. And basically the whole room looks at David, and they start talking, and the woman says point blank, like, look, we know we have an infestation in this neighborhood. We know who they are, and we need to call them out. And she looks at David and is like, yep, and I'm talking about you. So Gloria was like, hold up now, what you not gonna do is roll up on my son. And he was like, and she was like, no, yes we are. So David does what David does, sort of reminiscent of the what he did with the congressman earlier on in the season. He's, you're right. There is something going on in the Ville. And I do know. I'm not selling drugs, but I do know who it is. But if I say something, y'all know what's going to happen. They're going to come for my family. They're going to come for me. But it's time for us to stand up. But we need to stand up. I mean, he's giving it, right? He landed on real thick. And Gloria's sitting there looking like, Gloria know his ass lying. Like, she's looking at him put on this performance. But, of course, what's she supposed to say? She going to call her own son out in the middle of the room? But by the end of it, he turns it around and makes himself not look like such a target. So they get back to the apartment, and Gloria waiting for him. Gloria goes off. She says, so that's why you wanted to go? You wanted to go down there so you can make a spectacle of yourself? You out there, and she lays him out because she calls him out on his ish, right? And he comes back at her. He was like, look, it's your fault that I was out there because you was slipping. You lost your job. You ain't taking care of business. So that's what I had to do. He was like, and then he kind of started throwing her, calling her out about being back on them pills. And she was like, that's what you getting ready to do? You getting ready to embarrass me in front of my son? And he sort of looked at her, and she told him, she said, get your stuff and you get out. She hit a Bernadine from Waiting to Exhale, told him get his ish and get out, honey. And then in that moment, we hear that noise, that zoop type noise, and it was just one of David's fantasies. David walks in the apartment, and Gloria is sitting on the couch like a fiend. He tells JG go to bed. Gloria hits him with the, yo D, you got any more of them aspirin? And David, and that's why last week confused me when he voluntarily gave her the drugs. Like, what's getting ready to happen. Like, so now he's throwing it back at her, talking about so that's what it is. That's what this is going to be. And he tells her he only got one pill left. And he starts trying to kind of, talk to her about what the situation is. And she was like, look, like a true fiend, look, all I'm trying to do is get high. I ain't really trying to hear all that. And she's looking bad. Like, she's looking bad. And again, it just brings me back to last week and my confusion. I was confused today, and I'm still confused, to be honest with you. But okay, we're going to roll with it. Now, down to the other side of town, we see Ray and his uncle. His uncle rolls up on him, scares the hell out of him. His uncle tells him, look, you ain't made for this life. Like, you really ain't. This really ain't for you. He said, you costing me money, you messing up my business, so I'm going to just go on and relieve you of your duty. I'm just going to fire you. You just ain't made for this life. And, Ray was just like, all right, because what you going to do? So then he tells him, he said, do you know why I always had your back? He said, I told you, I'm never going to let nobody put their hands on you. He said, because I know you. You are me. He said, I grew up like you grew up. I was the dark-skinned one. Because if you look at him and you look at his sister, he said, I was the dark-skinned one. He said, so when you were born and you were the color of night, beautiful. He told him, he said, you were beautiful. You're a beautiful black baby. But I made a promise that I would never let nobody put their hands on you like they put their hands on me just because of who I was. He said, I was the dark-skinned one and they beat me for it. You know what I mean? And so you see why he sort of has an affinity for him and I feel like he was explaining the situation with Sky, saying, look, I ain't gonna never let nobody put their hands on you. I don't care who they are. You know what I'm saying? And so you see that little moment, and he sort of explains why he let things go the way they went, or what have you. So Then we see Sarah's mom then rolled up on the Ville, honey. She's just sitting out there in front of the apartments. And while she's sitting there, the lights come on and David rolls up on her. She calls the house first and hears their voicemail. And then David rolls up on her. David like, what you doing here? And she was like, well, I was looking for Sarah. He said, Sarah ain't here. And she said, well, you know, they say it's good to retrace your footsteps. So, I mean, I was just hoping. So then she looks at David. She was like, David, I know you know where he is. I know he was with you last. David said, you don't want to know what I know. And she just kind of looked at him. He said, I know about bruises all up and down his body. So bad that sometimes he couldn't even stand up straight and walk. I know about when he wasn't dealing with bruises on his body, he was trying to stop some nigga from coming in between his sheets. That's what I know. He said, so it's a lot of stuff going on around here right now. I suggest you get up out of here. Get home safe. I said, oh, David letting it all hang loose now. Because she asked David, well, what did that letter mean? He said, you ask Saren. I can't ask Saren. And so, you know, he lets her know that he knows what's up, right? So on his way back to the apartment, Sky's there. Now, mind you, we haven't seen Sky since David stole the script pad. And David said, you know, they started talking, and David was like, so you back? And he was like, you don't need me. He was like, I'm always going to be here, but you got this, young blood. So then he said, but what if I have questions? What if I need you? And he said, what you want to ask me? So he ends up asking Sky the same question he asked at the beginning of the episode. What was your last day like? Tell me what your last day was like. And then he's getting ready to walk away. And he turns back around and he asks him, he turns around and he asks him, he said, what would your one wish be? And Sky says that my son would be better than me. So David says, well, am I better than you? And Sky says, you the man. Now, y'all know I finally let go of David being Sky being David's daddy. I let it go. I accepted the fact that ain't the case. I let it go. However, made me think a little bit. But I'm going to keep it there. If we have a season 2, I'll see if they explore it. So David sort of walks off after that. So the next morning, David gets up and David says, look, I got to go down to the school. And Gloria is like, so the school is open? He was like, nah, but, you know, I got something to do. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, we know what he getting ready to do. He getting ready to take that script pad back. So he gets down to the school, and they were using the school as a shelter. So I guess that's where his teacher was last week when we saw that all the tents and stuff in the background. I guess she was at the school. And so he runs into the principal, and the principal act like she real happy to see him and everything. And I feel like the character Achille, I feel like he hit a growth spurt while they were filming, because I really felt like he was taller in a couple of these scenes than he was at the beginning of the season. But it could just be me. And she says, well, you know, the school is not open to students. She said, are you down here to volunteer? And he was like, well, no, I was just coming to check on something. And she said, I think Saren's mom wants to talk to you. And it was funny because he said, he said something about not needing to talk to her. He was like, well, the principal was like, well, you know, we'll call your mom and see, or something about calling his mom. And he was like, oh yeah, go ahead and give her a call. Because she was wondering why Sarah's mom put his hands on me and y'all didn't call her. So the principal was kind of standing there looking stupid like, oh shit, I guess I better leave this alone. Because the principal knows that David knows where the hell Saren is too. They all know that David knows, or feel like David knows. But they should know that David ain't gonna tell them nothing. So then David says, she had been calling him DJ. So then he says, David, I prefer David. And so he rolls out. And so, we stand out. So we see David kind of hanging out around the school. He must have put the script pad in the doctor's mailbox or something like that, because we see the doctor come out of the school and he's got his script pad. Next thing you know, we see Shinobi down to the pharmacy all beat up trying to get this daggone prescription filled. And he looking like a fiend. Like, he acting all jumpy and all, like, and the first time we saw him down there, he was all put together and calm, cool, collected. And now he all jumpy and acting nervous. And the doctor, he's waiting, and he's like, look, it never takes this long. What's going on? And he said, look, our systems are slow because of the storm, but don't worry about it. Next thing you know, the police roll up on Shinobi, take him out of there in cuffs. But it's the same police officer that keep picking up Ryan. They get to the car. He gets in the back seat of the car. Who's sitting in the back seat? Tino, Ryan's uncle. And he's convinced that Shinobi is working for Desmond, Jamaican boy. And he asked him, he said, how long you been running scripts? He said, you thought you was going to get over on me with my number? So I feel like David set Shinobi up. That's how I feel. He said, he said, how long you been running these scripts for Desmond? And he was like, Desmond? Shinobi like, what? He said, yeah. He said, you've been working for him up under my nose? You thought I wasn't going to find out? And he was like, look, I'm going to tell you what I do. Now, this is where people are always stupid. You getting ready to tell him you got all the dirt on him and you think you ain't about to die? He says, well, I'll tell you what I know. I know about, you running them scripts through the Ville. I know that this guy right here be picking up, be picking Ryan up, doing roundups all the time. Basically letting them know, I know that this police officer's crooked now, and I know that he on your payroll, and I know what you doing. I know your business. You thought you wasn't gonna die now? So then he tells Shinobi, he said, look, I always take care of my family. Maybe you should learn to do the same. Now, people in my comments last week said that Willie was not Shinobi's little brother. But I am almost certain that I remember in episode 1 when Lil Willie and JG were getting ready to fight, they made mention that that was his little brother. And when they made that comment, that's how I felt too, was that's your little brother. Like, you didn't watch out for yours. I'm going to take care of mine. You didn't take care of yours. Now, I could be wrong, but that's how I took that. So, that's the last we see of Shinobi. Now, again, if there is a season 2, they left that door open that whether Shinobi is actually dead or not. Shinobi could just be beat up really bad in a ditch. I don't know. But they left the door wide open that Shinobi, leave that to your imagination. Even though a conversation, we'll get to that. So then we see Desmond finds Ryan's car. He has a very distinct sports car with the busted up door or whatever that needs to be repainted. So Desmond rolls up on him thinking that he done found Ryan. And he rolls down the window, and who's in the car? Tino. And he tells him, he was like, look, I'm not going to let you screw over my family. Like, you really thought you was getting ready to kill my nephew? Like, that's what you thought was going to happen? Next thing you know, we see the cop again, and then it pans away, but we hear a gunshot. So, of course, the assumption is Jamaican boy dead. Next thing you know, we back in the Ville. We see Ryan and David having a moment. And so David says to Ray, like, what are you doing here? The plan was for you to not be here. And he was like, look, they said they got the Shinobi. And David was like, all right, because of course that was part of the plan, was that Shinobi was going to get caught. He said, but they said they let him go. So that's why I said the door's open, because they said they let him go. Don't know if they really did or not. And then he said, all right, well, what about Desmond? And Ray said, my uncle said, don't ask questions. That's going to keep me up at night. And so, David was like, so how do you live with him? Like, how do you live with knowing what he did? He was like, look, I don't know he did nothing. He was like, okay, that's how you feel. All right, cool. He was like, look, David, he gone. Let it go. Basically saying, Sky is gone. Let this go. He was like, he said, all right, I'm going to let it go, but you go with him. And Ray was like, you ain't in no position to make threats. David said, but I keep my promises. I said, oh, Lord, here we go. Ray said, you sound just like him. You sound just like Sky. David said, thank you. So Ray was like, look, I always wanted to have a little brother to look out for. And he tried to dap David up. David just kind of looked at him like, we not friends. We did what we had to do. We ain't friends. Because, see, David ain't forgot the reason why Sky's dead. So they, Ray walks off and David walks into the Ville and everything is good. JG playing football. David tells JG, don't get dirty. JG tell him, kiss my ass, David. I mean, like, no, he told him go fuck yourself. I was like, and here come Tara talking about something. What you gonna do about him? He was like, nothing. He just JG. And so they get to talking a little bit, They apologize and everything and kind of do that nervous laughter thing. But then her mama called him and he was like, why your mama always calling you? She would say, only when I'm talking to you. And then we see David just sort of leaning back and watching everything that's going on in the Ville, and everything is good, right? The sun is shining, the kids are playing, David's chilling, and like the block boys are dapping David up. And it's such a different moment than at the beginning of the season when David would run through the courtyard and sneak around to avoid the block boys. But now that Shinobi's gone, Ray's not there, like, it's a totally different vibe. But then right at the very end, that sound that I keep telling y'all, every time he's dreaming, you hear that sound. So, but that's how it ended. So I'm thinking, okay, was this a dream? Was this not real? Was this one of David's fantasies? Or is this really how everything went down? Now, couple of things. One, they could have left it like that because they are definitely leaving the door open for a season 2, and they didn't want to, because there's a lot of unanswered questions. We still don't know what's going on with Saren. We don't know about his mama being back on them pills. We don't know whether Shinobi is dead or alive. We can make assumptions, but we really don't know. We pretty much know Desmond dead. What's really going to happen with Ray now that, he can't be king of the jungle, and ultimately what's going to happen with David. What we do see is Professor Dr. Felicia Rashad, she calls Hurston. Because when David's talking to Tara, he asked her how did her audition go, and she was like, look, I don't know how that audition went, but I don't even know if I want to go to that school now. They don't even have a football team. I might just go to the neighborhood school. And I'm sure El Teddy will be very familiar with whatever that school was that they mentioned, because, he's from Miami. He knows the system very well. He taught there and stuff. But David said, yeah, me too. Like, and I'm I probably blew my chance of getting into Hurston anyway, so it is what it is. But then we see that the doctor actually called Hurston admissions for David on David's behalf, because remember, he had been trying to get this letter, and I guess with everything that happened with Saren and everything like that, she was like, look, I can't have another one, and so that's where it ended, y'all. Now here's what I'm hoping that we're gonna get a season 2, and that they're gonna kind of go ahead and jump into production, and that we start getting some new episodes by summer, right? That's what I'm hoping. But I'm sure we're going to keep it, we'll keep an eye on it. And my watchers, shout out to Dami Thomas, because I know he's going to be on it. And the minute OWN announces whether it's going to be a season 2 or not, Dami going to be in my DMs letting me know. So shouts out for that. We're going to, as far as I know, we'll be doing our panel on Friday night to discuss the finale. We've been texting, honey, so we will have some things to say. And I will talk to y'all later. Let me know what y'all think. Drop it in the comments. Peace.